Hello, my darlings. Mother Raven here, with the second part of the waxing. First, a little note. I wrote this on no sleep, and as the story went on, I had a reader who anticipated my every move, so I was forced to push the story in a direction I didn't intend. It turned out good, I think. Nevertheless, enjoy it for what it is, a story. Dear Aunt Lily, it has been an eventful and strange day. Tonight is the equinox, so I fear what will happens then. The summer is definitely over, and the crispness of fall is in the air. But I think whatever this is bigger than one season changing to the next. Last night was another bad night for both Jim and I. He awoke twice with nightmares screaming. It must have been about the war. I, however, was experiencing my own nightmare. It started like the others. I was being chased through the forest for what seemed hours. I could hear hoofbeats behind me, but didn't dare turn to look for the longest time. At last I felt I had to look to see who was chasing me. As I looked away from where I was headed, I crashed into someone. I was grabbed by the shoulders. I looked forward, and a beautiful Indian lady had her hands on my shoulder. I was standing in a cornfield. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, this isn't his land. It's in your favor anyway." As she said this, a hunting horn sounded behind me. She looked behind me, grabbed my hand, and we ran, crashing down the rows of corn with hoofbeats behind us again. We broke through the corn and into the forest again. A lovely lady in a green gown with silver jewelry stood in a clearing with a smile on her face, her arms open to us. The moon shined down on her. As we were almost there, the hunting horn sounded again. I woke suddenly to Jim yelling something unintelligible about a man with his head gone. This morning, I asked Jim more about his professor friend. It seems that Alistair is in fact the last name. The first name is Catherine. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I'm digesting it. At least it isn't your satanic man, Aunt Lily. After Jim had left for work, I was cleaning up the breakfast dishes. When I turned around, a small pile of acorns were on the table. It was even stranger because they were arranged around a pattern the cut glass gave the morning sun on the table. It made the sun's light shine bright in a pattern, with a circle in the middle, with two half-moon shapes overlapping it on both sides. I walked to the main street to get some shopping done. When I went into the Five and Dime, Mrs. White was beside herself with joy. Her John had been found and released from a POW camp. She had received a letter from him. He was in bad shape, but they expected a full recovery. Someone had taken down the letter for him, as he had not gotten full movement in his hands for some reason. I was so happy for her. John was a swell guy. I was glad he was coming home. At that point, Mrs. White got a funny look in her eye. "There was a postscript about you, you know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me," she said. I looked at the letter she handed me. You could see the pained scrawl of the postscript was different from the neat hand of the letter itself. P.S. Please tell Mrs. Olson, the young one married to Jim. Please tell her she will be okay. Tell her Amaterasu is on her side. Tell her about yin and yang. The balance must be restored. I don't know what that means. I'm afraid to look up anything Japanese would be frowned on more than looking up witches in the library. Well, that is it. Tonight will be whatever it is that will happen. I imagine only one more letter will be in this story. I've told my mom that if anything happens to me, to write it up and send it to you. She looked at me funny. But if I die, you deserve to know. Please wish me luck. Evelyn. Dear Aunt Lily, this will be my last letter to you. I sit here shaking and crying As you may have suspected, my Jim is dead. I have the certified check and the information you kindly gave me in reply to my first letter. How you know so much about the future, Auntie, I don't know. Even if you aren't my real aunt, you have been so much family to me. After I'm done writing, I will get ready and go to bed. I have no bloody clothes or splatter. I didn't kill Jim, though they'll never find his killer. I now understand his death was necessary, but I wonder why it had to be us. After dinner last night, Jim insisted we go for a walk. I knew tonight was the night and begged him to stay home tonight and listen to the radio. He became insistent and then angry. Jim has never hit me until last night. He said we had to go, so I got my coat. I suggested Main Street, but he just said no and dragged me to the woods. I looked back as we entered the woods and saw the same Indian lady standing in our corn patch. She was smiling, so I felt a little reassured. Maybe it would be all ceremonial and no one would die. As we got further into the woods, I noticed something odd. The trees were different. All different. There were oaks and aspens and pines and all sorts of trees I had never seen before. There was a hill we were headed for. This wasn't the woods behind our house at all. On the hill stood a tree so very large 20 men couldn't have circled it with their arms. I recognized it from a book I read long ago. It was a camphor tree. As we got to the base of the tree, I noticed all sorts of figures surrounding a large flat stone. The figures seemed dark and almost blurry. They looked strange. Some looked like they were wearing robes. Some had elaborate headgear or helmets. Yes, he was there, the horned man. All the while Jim dragging me resolutely to the spot, never looking at me, answering my questions, or even acknowledging me. He threw me against the stone. He finally said, "I'm sorry, Evie. I have no choice." He went to lift me onto the stone when a figure of the horned man and the others stepped forward and grabbed Jim. A kind-looking woman in a yellow cream silk kimono with images of birds on it took me by the arm and led me away from the altar, which it as obviously was to the circle. The lady in green stepped forward to me and hugged me. "My dear child," she said, "this entire thing has been for your benefit, not your harm. The world has changed over the last millennia, and slightly more. The balance of power has been shattered and growing ever more one-sided." As she spoke, I saw flashes of images, women screaming in pain as they were burned alive, women beaten, women in courts before all men. This was in times past. All people had a say, had a voice, had visions of many things, of all things. A woman in what seemed Egyptian clothes. Women ruled as well as men. Women's wisdom was respected. Men and women were equal. A lady who must be Amaterasu said, "The yin and the yang." I saw the symbol she was talking about. Dark and light and dark. Today men cannot be soft and women cannot be strong. That is against the laws of nature and human nature as well. Jim was screaming on the altar. He was tied with arms and legs outstretched. The horned man stood at his head, a bearded Greek man at his feet. A blonde woman with gold armbands and a crown stood on the other side of the altar from me. She smiled and said, "I am Freya, and harvest is my time, but I am also a goddess of death. Men have taken this world and pushed women aside. It is time to start restoring the balance. It will take as many decades to end as it did to get there. There will be no peace in the world until women's voices are heard again. As the two wars in this century fought on a scale never seen before indicates, all divine voices across the earth have united for this. Evelyn, we take your husband. His bloodshed will empower the forces all over the world, and the new time will begin." I pled for his life, Aunt Lily. I tried to get him. I knew he wasn't himself when he dragged me there, thinking I would be the sacrifice. But a peace came over me, and I forgave him. We leave you with the comfort of the child you carry, the corn lady said on my right. You won't be along too long. And another man waits to be your husband as well. This was little comfort for me at the time. Maybe it will be soon. A blue woman stepping into Freya's place with a necklace of skulls and a dagger in her hand. I didn't want to see, but I couldn't look away. And Jim's heart was cut from his chest. I don't remember getting home. After that, everything was a blur. I don't know if the police will find Jim's body in our woods tomorrow, but I will call them when I wake. Tell them he didn't come home after I came home and decided to walk further. What can I do? I can't tell them the truth. Tell me, Aunt Lily, are women better off there 70 years in the future? Can we keep the jobs we loved? Can we be doctors and not just nurses? Can we speak without fear? Can we maybe even lead nations? Are we listened to and respected? It may take even beyond your time, but did what I lose last night make a difference? With fondest farewells, Evelyn Olson, widow. Thank you, my darlings, for staying to listen to my stories. I'll meet you again next time under the trees for more tales.